feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast. We're brought to you by Prize Picks. Coming at you Wednesday morning. It's November 27th after Wolves 117-111 loss to the Rockets in overtime on Tuesday night. And I think from that game, our focus is going to kind of be on the new players on the Wolves team this season. Rob Dillingham, arrow going up, boop, boop, boop. Dante DiVincenzo, Julius Randle, arrow going down in their sort of acclimation process, or at least production that they've had recently. A quick reminder before we get going that this will be the last episode of the week. I'm heading out of town today for a long weekend, so no episodes after this until Monday, December 2nd. But wow, that's Chris Hine. He's you're booing that I'm not. What are you mad at?
I need content, Dane. I need content. Screw the holidays. I need content.
I actually think this is a good time to actually stop doing content for a little bit. I mean, whatever. I would want to jump into this right away, but it is a weird experience, right? Covering a team that was really good 1 year and then isn't starting. Was that ever like that with the Blackhawks when you covered them? I don't follow the NHL enough to.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this: the last full season I covered the Blackhawks, they were the 1 seed in the Western Conference, and they got swept in the first round by the Nashville Predators. So that just led to bad vibes going into the next season, which I think they missed the playoffs. That was when I left halfway through to come to Minnesota.
Oh, okay.
And I think they missed the playoffs that year. And it was kind of like the end of this 3-title era, like that kind of season into the next one.
Yeah, but they had 3 titles.
They had 3 titles, exactly.
Wolves fans are probably a little bit more justified in that they're like, we've had 3 good seasons ever, you know? We thought this was supposed to be one. So, I do think whatever this for the Wolves is next couple weeks, month, whatever, is trying to get back on track to reconvincing themselves even that they are the great team that they thought they were coming into the season. They're not that right now. I think that is something we know being there every day. I think that's something they know. That doesn't mean they don't believe they can't get back to it, but they know that there are multiple hurdles to climb here to be the team that they were.
I think what I've learned in 7 seasons of covering the NBA is even with a lot of the same personnel, every team has its own personality and identity and quirks or bugs or features about it that have to be addressed or ironed out, or that are strengths or weaknesses.
Right.
Even if a lot of the personnel is the same, every season I think is different in that way. It really is. And I've really come to learn that you have to embrace what this version, like the 2024-25 version of the Timberwolves, is just different from the 23-24 version. And you have to figure out what works for this team and honestly try not to think too much about the past, because right now getting caught up in the past is not helpful right now to this team.
I think that's particularly true in basketball. I mean, part of that is just obvious, 5 guys playing at a time. I think part of it is the game. You're saying that right there, and I'm thinking of, we have big time examples of that in the Denver Nuggets after their championship. You know, you pull out one piece there, how much that can kind of change the whole, even if it's not the piece or the main piece, can kind of change the entire identity of what a team is, and force you to find a new one. Again, that's what the Wolves are looking for right now. I think part of the process of finding that new identity is going to be kind of nailing down the point guard position. You wrote after the game last night that your belief, quote, the Wolves need to have a true point guard playing point guard minutes, which means Dillingham should be the 9th man of the rotation when Conley returns. It sounded as if Finch was coming around to the idea after Tuesday's game. That's what Chris wrote. Chris, I'm going to play this clip from Finch first, and then I want you to kind of elaborate on that. This is Chris asking Chris a question.
You guys are 0-4 when Mike doesn't play this year. The offense looked different with Rob out there, and if offense is affecting defense, how much do you need a true point guard to be playing point guard minutes for you as opposed to
Real quick, great question. Look at you, man. Look at you. All right, here's Finch's answer. Here's Finch's answer.
Maybe trying to have Dante or Nikhil
Yeah.
those minutes.
Yeah, I think it's evident that our, kind of our rhythm is affected. I think oftentimes, Ant and Julius probably feel that they got to do too much too early sometimes in the offense. So yeah, for sure, Rob's play of late has definitely revealed that for us.
It's that last part there, right, Chris?
Yeah.
Revealed that for us. So you're pushing in your piece the idea that this should happen, but from the coach doesn't seem like all that novel of a concept. I mean, we're kind of anticipating that this is going to be the move, right? That 48 minutes of true point guard play, meaning Conley or Dillingham, if they're both healthy.
I think that's where this team is at right now.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that that's what has to look like later in the season or whatever. Like let's say Dante works out of his slump here, and maybe you can go back to that at some point, or Nikhil. I don't know, but honestly, right now it just looks so different when a point guard is running the offense than not. Right now, it just is. It allows everybody else to just slot back into their more natural tendencies and positions. You don't like he said, in that answer, Ant and Julius maybe feel like they have to do a little bit too much. Dante and Nikhil, obviously, if they're the ones handling that, they're getting pressured up the floor. They're having to exert more energy, do a little bit too much. They can't play off the ball as well as they normally do. It almost isn't like any point guard would do, I think, right now.
Right.
Rob Dillingham happens to be the guy, and he's playing well, and he's taking his opportunity and running with it. But if it was Jordan McLaughlin out there, I think we might be saying the same thing. For instance, I think just with the way this team is structured right now, they need a point guard playing point guard. Like I think that's just that's what the eye test is telling me over these last games that Conley has been out.
So, I mean, I saw Jay's tweet about this yesterday. So similar to the Phoenix thing last year,
It
right?
is.
Where they
Yeah,
tried to shoehorn other guys into that point guard, which, like, in positionless basketball, whatever. But sometimes a team does need that position in particular, or somebody who can handle it. I think back to the last times they played the Kings, and Davion Mitchell is just blitzing Rob Dillingham and trying to pressure the ball there. But I remember just watching it being like, oh, this isn't new to Rob. Like, it's not like Mitchell's like getting his hand on it a couple times and like is pressuring him, but it's not like a startling thing for Rob Dillingham to get picked up full court. For Nikhil Alexander-Walker, it's hard to be able to do that. He's not effective in that way. And to me, what that is just like, well, yeah, man, like Rob Dillingham has been a point guard his whole life on every team he's ever been on. Like, he's always been the guy who's brought the ball up the floor. Whereas Nikhil and Dante have not been that. That has not been as I understand it, at least, the role that those guys have played as their primary role. Maybe Nikhil a little bit, but that's always something he struggled with. So I think just to that, and they need, this team is craving the player who naturally has natural point guard tendencies. Now, I will say, this is obviously a shift in Finch's opinion, if we take what he said at the end of that answer there to be true. It's a shift in my opinion as well. Yeah. Kyle and I did a pod after the second Portland loss, and Kyle was pushing. I think Rob Dillingham needs to, take 10, 15 minutes. And this is when Conley was healthy, take 10, 15 minutes from the 8 guys in the rotation. And my point was, do you really want to bet that those 10 or 15, say, call it 10 minutes, 10 Rob Dillingham minutes in place of 10 Nikhil Alexander-Walker minutes is going to be better? That seemed like a bad bet to me. And I do think some things have changed since then, or maybe I was just wrong, from the beginning. But some things have for sure changed. One, obviously,
Dane,
Conley got hurt.
You're not allowed to say you're wrong in the internet age. That's not. We don't do that here in 2024.
My bad.
That's not how you get engagement. You double down on your bad takes. You say you're right in the face of the evidence saying you're wrong.
Is that works? That's what people
I think that works in some realms of life. Yes, it seems to.
Well, what I'm doing is working too. So,
That's true.
what has changed is Conley got hurt, right? That's
Right.
one thing. So there's just naturally been playing time available. We haven't actually really been posed with the proposition of, that subtract 10 minutes from Nikhil or Dante so as to play Dillingham in their place. I mean, kind of with Dante last night, he got benched in the second half, but the team hasn't been fully healthy, and they haven't chosen to play Rob Dillingham over Alexander Walker or DiVincenzo yet. Again, I think that's where this is moving. But we'll see once Conley gets back. The other big change is Alexander Walker and DiVincenzo have shown less competence at the point than I think we previously expected. Particularly with DiVincenzo looked great at the point in preseason, and I was kind of like, that adjusted my whole opinion on what position he plays. I'm like, all right, like maybe he is more of a point guard than I thought.
Yeah.
I think with Nikhil, we knew a little bit of like that. You're only going to get 80% of Nikhil if he's playing point guard. I think we knew that from the beginning, but 80% of Nikhil was still cool. I was like, okay, well, I'm still taking 80% of Nikhil over Dillingham. That's what I was thinking 2 weeks ago, but I don't think that's proven to be right either. The Wolves have also lost 6 of the last 8 games, right? Am I doing that right? 3, 2.
I think so.
They've lost a lot of games.
Since the last 8. Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And I think a lot of those losses are blamable on the team's lack of organization, right? Obviously the Toronto game, glaringly so in the fourth quarter there, but just overall they're losing these games because they don't have organization. If we connect organization to Mike Conley and Mike Conley being out to them being 0-4 when Mike Conley's out. So it's, to me, the calculation has very much changed. I think it's going to be a little bit more of a different equation once Conley's back in. He was warming up before the game. That might be coming. Whatever. We'll see. An injury to a 37-year-old is always a little, what's going on there.
Well, as somebody who's 38, yes, I agree. Yeah. It always is. What's going on here?
I literally just stepped off the curb. Like, I don't know, why did that hurt my ankle?
That's right.
But right. So I think that's what Finch is coming around to, is a lot of the details have changed. That doesn't mean he was right for having been slow to this. If he would have been quicker to this, which I think a lot of fans wanted, then they probably aren't 2-6 over their last 8 games. But this is my understanding of how it's been unfolding in his head, or it would make sense to me to be that way.
Yeah, I mean, well, listen, it takes a while to figure out what you need, and injuries are chances to evaluate what you have with other guys. And the Wolves are at that point right now where we're figuring out what this team is lacking and what this team needs. And I don't think it's a coincidence that they're starting to dig these holes for themselves at the start of games, and they're not, Mike Conley's not there to start. Yep. Listen, the starting lineup has some weird mojo when Mike's out there. I still don't think that's totally fixed, but it's better, or it has been better. Important to note that they are playing 2 of the better defenses in the league, in Houston and Boston, and it exposed that need for a point guard. I think these 2 teams exposed that. If the Wolves had a little more pop in Boston, and especially in the first half, does that game look different? And what shifted that game too, and who sparked a late run in the fourth quarter of that game? It was Rob Dillingham, right? So, this is what happens in the course of an NBA season. You learn what you need, you learn where your weaknesses are, and sometimes it takes a little while for it to drill in. It takes seeing it in multiple games and not just reacting to one game. But I think now we have enough evidence, I think, that this team needs more true point guard play at the point guard position. And I don't know if that's going to you know, we'll see what happens when Mike comes back, and we'll see if that affects what Tim Connolly does down the road here with this team. But
Right.
right now, yeah, I think right now it's Mike playing his usual. You know, how does this look? 25 minutes for Mike, right?
Yeah,
And
25,
then
28, something
20. You try to find a way for 18 to 20 for Rob, and then you let the other 5-ish go to Dante or Nikhil in a for one shift. You know what I mean? Like that is that kind of the
Yeah, I'm at the
plan?
point of like with Dante and Nikhil of like maybe just take that away until they get a rhythm back. I think to me, and I don't think these are perfect answers either if you don't have Rob or Mike out there, but
Mhm.
I would just have Julius bring it up Kyle Anderson style. Like
Okay.
what is when Nikhil's bringing it up anyways, what is he doing to bring it up? He's bringing it up to get to like pistol handoff something so Julius Randle has it up top. Like Julius Randle could just walk it up. And I mean, if they're not pressuring him full, I kind of think he could do that. It's just the Nikhil one for sure. It's just that's not his skill set. It's just so far away from his best skill set. He's, now probably wasted 30 of his minutes this season playing point guard and still has, in the aggregate, has still played a really, really good season overall. That one, I just think you got to kind of put it back there. The last thing before we grab our first break, I did want to mention that some people probably have concern that Dillingham is going to play because Finch didn't play him in the overtime. Like once Conley's back there,
Right.
it just doesn't seem like he's high enough in Finch's pecking order. That's the perception because he didn't play in overtime there.
Neither did Nas Reed, by the way.
Yes, which neither of those were good ideas. Finch copped to, and we'll talk about Nas later, but Finch copped to should have played Nas more in that game. And generally, he said he should have played him at the 3. The Dillingham one, just because he did answer about this in the post-game press conference. Dillingham had played, I think, 15 of the last 16 minutes of the regulation. So what Finch said is they went back to Nikhil for defense and to give Dillingham a rest. But obviously overtime wasn't good. And by the time Dillingham got back in there, the game was kind of already, they'd fallen behind by too much. And then Rob did make that turnover when it was 104, 102. So I don't know. I mean, we don't really know where exactly Finch is going to be at on this spectrum. I don't think he's going to obviously be all the way over on the far right side of the play. Rob needs to start or Rob, which like a lot of people, and I'm not even totally making fun of that. Like Rob does need to play and that makes sense to me. He's just going to be somewhere in the middle of the spectrum. Tonight we'll be telling against Sacramento as to where Finch exactly feels Dillingham's role fits. But to Chris's question and Finch's answer, it's coming.
And let's make a point about his defense because I see a lot of this on social media. Listen, I was an early skeptic of his defense, and I kind of was in agreement that was probably why he shouldn't play. But seeing this team play defense overall and its lack of focus and intensity, right now Rob Dillingham is no less a defensive liability than anybody else on the roster. And he's trying. He's giving maximum effort. And he had 5 rebounds last night, and I think that's a telltale sign of the effort that you're giving.
Right.
Because how many times do we see some of the guards go through a whole game and not get a single rebound?
I sure remember Ant doing that in Portland.
Right. So listen, he's working hard. He's really trying to get better on that end of the floor. And it's not like he's coming in and ruining a defensive juggernaut right now. What he gives them on offense outweighs whatever risk or downside there is defensively, and that I think
I've been saying for 2 weeks that I've been impressed with since he started playing. It's not only the effort, he seems to understand concept defensively too. And what kills you, and the Wolves have had these, I think we talked about this in previous years with Jalen Noel, Bryn Forbes, undersized players who are not executing the concept. And once I saw Rob Dillingham pretty clearly understand, or the majority of the time, understand what he's being asked to execute defensively. I was like, that's been a thing. That's been a thing since Rob's been playing, because I think, you go back to Summer League, like I think he's really listened to coaching, and they'd say, we need you to be in this team, and in the NBA, we need you to be a playmaker, and we need you to guard. And going back to Summer League, he's prioritized this thing. It's if you've watched everything, it's been clear that Rob Dillingham has prioritized the things that they have.
You could see him being very intentional out there, and he is not lazy. His mistakes will not be for lack of trying or focus on the game plan. He said that after Boston, that he's like, listen, coach does this with me every time on what screen, what to do when this guy comes to screen, what to do when that guy comes to screen. So he is thinking the game out there and trying to put it all together on the defensive end quickly.
100%. Let me grab our first break here to let y'all know that today's show is brought to you by Adriana Lonick at Coldwell Banker Realty. And if you are in the market for buying or selling a home, you need a realtor. And if you listen to this podcast, I think there's about a 62% chance you live in Minnesota or Wisconsin. And she is a licensed realtor in those states. Also, Wolves fan season ticket holder, and wanted to expand her clientele through the Wolves fan base. I know many of you have signed up for strategy sessions with Adriana that are free, that just kind of get the ball rolling for you, which is, particularly if you're a first-time home buyer, something that you need. I would really recommend just signing up for that first free strategy session for two reasons. It's going to help you get the ball rolling, but also you'll be entered to win some lower level Wolves tickets for signing up for that free strategy session. To do that, to set up a strategy session, you can go to the dancingrealtor.com. This is all in the show notes as well. You can go to her website, or you can call or text her at 715-304-9920 to book a consultation and to be registered to win some tickets. Today's show is also brought to you by Treasure Island Resort and Casino. And if you are in Minnesota this weekend, maybe you have some family in town, a lot of giveaways at Treasure Island this weekend. They have a up to $360,000 Dream Drive giveaway on Friday and Saturday, November 29th and 30th, from noon to 7 p.m. It's a whole bunch of stuff, but Treasure Island is drawing for 64 total winners of $2,000 of free slot play, 16 winners of $5,000 cash or free slot play, and 4 winners of a $60,000 Genesis gift card. But you registered for this by having an Island Passport Club card, which is free to do when you're there. So if you're just looking for a fun night with the family or friends or whatever over this long weekend, I really do recommend Treasure Island Resort and Casino. There's just a lot more there, even if you're not a gambler, to check out. A lot more than I certainly thought. So for a list of full promotions, rules, and more information on the $360,000 Dream Drive giveaway, you can go to ticasino.com. All right, Chris. So the Rob part, that's the main thing here. But as I was sitting down this morning, kind of putting this together, I'm thinking about, well, Rob has earned an opportunity because he's effectively acclimated, right, to this team over the course of time, whereas Randle and DiVincenzo are still figuring out that acclimation process. And I know it's different in different roles. Obviously, Randle's is a significantly more prolific role, and even DiVincenzo's is too. I'm just, it's been curious, right, to kind of see how long this is taking. Where are you at on this? Like, how long is too long for new personnel to acclimate?
I go back and forth on this. I think there's a sweet spot between 20 games and half the season. Mm-hmm. And I know that's not always what fans want to hear. You want to hear it's going to be seamless right away. But I think that's especially 2 years ago. I was talking to some scouts and things like that after the Gobert trade, and some of them said about a third to half the year you have to give it. You have to give it that much when you make such a major change like that, and I would consider this a fairly major change.
Sure.
So I think that it's 20 to 40 games, and so we're nearing that right now. I think once you hit 40 games or so, you have to make a decision: is this working or is this not? Because you have the trade deadline just around the corner after that. But I did this in my newsletter this week, plugging that again. Sign up for free. Go to my Twitter and Blue Sky accounts to see the link. But I played a little game in the newsletter this week where I said, hey, here's the numbers for somebody through half of their first season in Chris Finch's offense. And this person was a 38% 3-point shooter career. And they're halfway through their first season playing under Chris Finch, they were at 31%. And then second half of the season, 41%. Do you know who that might be?
Is it D'Lo?
No, it was Taurean Prince 3 years ago.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it took half the year for Taurean Prince once upon a time for it all to click in. And then if you remember late in that season, he really took off.
Totally.
So I think if you are holding out hope for the DiVincenzo part of this, that is maybe the model. I mean, listen, different players, different positions, but shooters, right? Yeah. So finding their rhythm and their role within a Chris Finch offense. There is history of that happening. So if you're looking for reasons to be optimistic about DiVincenzo, I think it's that. I think it's sliding him back to a more natural off-ball position will help with that, and just finding ways that he can, concentrate on himself getting going and not having to worry about getting others going at the same time while playing point guard. From that end of it,
I agree, and where I'm at on it is I do think that's going to come with DiVincenzo. I think it's going to be more seamless for him to find his role within this team than it might be for Randle to find his. There's just, it's just such a bigger role. He's just higher on the pecking order with Randle. And if Taurean Prince is the example for DiVincenzo, then I think the acclimation question and the struggles and what's relevant in a Wolves comparison for Randle is Gobert. Is Gobert two seasons ago? He was asked about that after the game. I'll play this clip. I thought this was interesting.
Years ago, you were the new personnel and there was a struggle to adjust. Do you see any similarities between new personnel coming in and struggling to adjust?
This is a game of instinct and automatism, so every time there is a change, it's going to take time to adjust. The question is how long, and I think when we have experience, when you have guys that really want to make each other better, it's usually quick, so it comes, it's about us being willing to adapt to each other and really do anything we can to help each other thrive, because when we do that, the team's going to thrive. And I think we have that in us. We're not we got some young guys, but we're not a young team anymore. Even the younger guys, they've been through a couple of playoffs experiences, and they know what it takes. So I think we'll be all right.
Is it later than you thought here in Game 17?
I didn't think anything. All I thought is that we got potential to be a top team in this league, and I still think we do. Now it's about how we react to adversity and how we stick together and how we keep learning and getting better. That's like I said. It's very early in the season. We control our destiny. It's about how we react and how we handle the storm.
So, Chris, I think back to that first Gobert season, and And what happened is they did not handle the storm. I mean, you were in that locker room, like things got progressively weird that season, and eventually they made a roster change in trading D'Angelo Russell for Mike Conley and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And I know a lot of people are directly connecting that dot right now, and kind of almost assuming something of that version is going to happen with Randle. It's not going to. I mean, one, they found an awesome deal for D'Angelo Russell and getting Mike Conley, Nickeil Alexander-Walker in 3 seconds for him. The likelihood that they're able to find something like that for Randle is long odds. They're also in the second apron, which really restricts their ability to be able to trade him at all. So we're not doing a trade segment on Randle right now, but because I know a lot of people are thinking that, we'll talk about it more in the future. But this is going to be, even if they get to the point of determining they can't weather this storm, it is going to be very difficult to trade Randle. So the process here is going to be figuring out how to weather the storm and to acclimate as a group. And I do think it's early enough in the season to, that they have an opportunity to be able to do that. And it's fair for fans too to question if that is ever going to happen. They're going to give this room to breathe and the opportunity to try to acclimate.
Well, that's just it. They have to give a long leash to this, longer than the fans may want or are feeling in this moment after losing 6 of 8 games. And I think the other thing that goes into this, and I don't think you can downplay this. 2 years ago, you often said, and we all often said that, the thing with Rudy is when there are mistakes, they are loud. And Julius Randle, it's a similar vibe, right?
Sure.
When there are mistakes, it looks bad, right? His mistakes look worse than other players, whether it's trying to throw out of a crowd and it gets stolen, whether it's, lack of attention to detail on off-ball defense, right? Those things are loud mistakes that people can easily point to and lead to moments of frustration. And I think that affects a player's rep with a fan base more than somebody who you don't really notice what their mistakes might be. So I think he's got a little bit of that in his game. That's not helping matters. And go ahead.
You know what I've been thinking about is, so what does Jaden McDaniels do when something goes wrong? He gets angry, right? When something goes wrong with Julius Randle, he gets apathetic, and at least for the subsequent possession, does not put in the effort that you'd seen him put in 5 possessions earlier when something went right. And that to me is the loudest thing. And honestly, like, the one that I'm most concerned about them, or if I were the Wolves, it'd be the one I'd be most concerned about getting right. A lot of the defensive things that you've talked about there, the driving into a crowd, stuff like that, like that can kind of be schemed up a little bit, coached up a little bit. The way Randle's emotions go, that is something he exclusively can control himself, and they can try and coach him up, through that. But that's at least to me the loudest thing, and frankly, is that apathy is growing progressively over the course of this season, or over these last 2 weeks for sure, which I think affirms my point, because they're losing and things are going wrong more often. That apathetic energy, when you are one of the best players on the team, or one of the players that the head coach is putting the ball in their hands a lot and really relying on, that can't happen. Or if it does, this is what it looks like. So I think with Randle, it's really about kind of putting some bumpers on there and staying within those lanes. We talked about the same thing with Jaden. Like, that anger can be really discombobulating. And for both of them, checking that frustration they're just too important to the team. They need to have that.
Yeah. It's crazy that it's kind of go in opposite ways for both of them when they're struggling, right?
Right.
Like, yeah,
Super
it's like
interesting.
different fascinating psychological study.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with anything you said there. I think, I forget who did it on Twitter, but somebody who put together the clip of him getting beat backdoor or off ball defense. This was kind of the worry when you made that trade that this might be where it progresses this season with him, right? Like this wasn't an unknown with Julius. Now I will say again, teams go through low points, try to take a step back when it comes to this trade. He also didn't play the last half of last season.
Sure.
So, maybe big picture, there is also he's still trying to play himself back into a rhythm kind of thing after missing half the season a year ago. Right. I don't know. I'm grasping at straws here right now. Trying to look for, I guess, a reason why you should still be patient and
one reason
could turn around.
So I think we can make this case too, and I think these are the ones that they're having internally. Is look at the beginning of the season, offense. What Randle was giving them offensively and late in games has been really, really helpful. I think from a purely a statistical standpoint, there's a strong statistical case for continuing to believe in Julius Randle on the surface. The Wolves' offensive rating with Randle on the floor is 6.8 points per 100 possessions better with him on the floor than off the floor. And that is the highest differential on the team, which typically in a normal situation screams this is one of, if not your
valuable
most
player. Yeah.
Valuable offensive player.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, when Randle is on the floor, the game just has more points to it, period. Right? They're giving up more on the other side as well. So the Wolves have a 116.2 offensive rating with Randle on the floor, defensive rating of 116.0. So about a neutral net rating. But that's 232.2, right? If you put the sum of those together. Now you take Randle off the floor and scoring just goes down across the board because those are a lot of Rudy Gobert minutes, and that's just a Rudy Gobert thing. The game slows down. There's less scoring offensively and there's less scoring defensively. In the Randle off minutes, the offensive rating is 109.4 and the defensive rating is 105.0. So that's a total of 214.4. That's just like that's a huge difference right there in just the overall scoring, which to me could indicate that on-off differential with Randle offensively is in ways misleading. Now, I do think Randle is a helpful offensive player, but I've been noting, this is mostly just checking myself over the month of the season, been like, okay, well, the offense is way better with Randle on. The offense is way better with Randle on. But that's part of it. And I don't think the offense is way better with Randle on. It's been better is the way I would put it. And I think those numbers aren't telling a completely accurate story. Do you get what I'm getting at there?
I do. Like just in terms of the overall context of how the game goes when he's on the floor, yes, the offense is better, but the defense is worse.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a give and take that you can't just point to the offensive numbers and say, look, the offense is so much better when Julius Randle's on the floor. It's, one end of the floor is better, one end of the floor is worse. What was that defensive number again? 105
with Randle off. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, the Rudy and Nas minutes rule. We know that. We learned that. We learned that last season.
We learned that last season. Yeah, we did.
I mean, third third quarter last night, Nas is getting really active defensively, and we're all sitting there on media row, and it's like, oh, here, like Nas is playing defense again. And the first thing I said, I was like, yo, you see who he's out there with? He's playing the 4. He's out there with Rudy. Like it's a completely
it's almost kind of similar to our point guard thing. Positions matter.
Yeah, dude.
Like because for Nas playing the 4 right now matters. Or playing the 5 for Dante and Nikhil playing the 2 instead of the 1 or the 3, whatever matters. Like positions sometimes matter with these guys, and I think I was thinking this the other night. I mean, I think it makes what Carl did successfully look much better in hindsight. The fact that he completely changed positions and it worked. Like, I think it's a bigger accomplishment in hindsight than maybe we realized at the time.
Total hat tip there for sure. Helped by Kyle Anderson some, because I was how that
right.
They had a good unit identity there, but yeah, I don't say
Kyle Anderson, when he played Kyle Anderson at the 3, what happened? It wasn't as good. When he played Kyle Anderson at the 4, it was much better, right? Another example.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're getting off track from your Julius Randle point, but I think it's right. I think you hate to just draw a line and say what's different about the Timberwolves defense this season. Oh, Julius Randle's there instead of Karl Anthony Towns. But stylistically, yes, it's made a difference.
And what was Karl, even when Karl was a bad defender, whatever, earlier in his career, what was Karl always good at defensively?
Rebounding.
Boom.
Yeah.
That was. Well, I mean, he was good at some other things too.
But like some other things too, right?
But that was the main thing, that he rebounded for his spot the whole time. I remember that I have this clip. Finch was asked about Randle's defense and the rebounding specifically. I want to play this.
What have you thought of, especially late, Julius's defensive play? The numbers, like the defensive rating, hasn't been the best thus far this year. Like, what do you think of what you're getting from him on that end of the court?
Yeah, I think on the ball he's been good. Off the ball he's been kind of inconsistent, like everything else that we do right now. His rebounding numbers have been down. Like both he and us are kind of wondering why that is the case. In general, we struggle to rebound at times. Although we were better tonight, given how much they do actually go to the glass. I think some of it is still kind of our system versus the previous system is a little different. So comfort level there, but a little bit of a lag time in some things that we need him to be a bit sharper at.
So, Chris, the defensive rebounding, to stick with some of these Gobert on-off numbers. Gobert on the floor, the Wolves have rebounded 75.7% of opponents' missed shots. That is just a hair worse than what the Clippers are at as a team this season. And the Clippers are the number 1 defensive rebounding team in the league. But with Gobert off the floor, the Wolves are getting defensive rebounds on 66.8% of opponent misses. And that is worse than number 30 Portland. There is a massive.
I saw you tweet that yesterday, and I was like, "Oh my goodness!" That's it in a nutshell, right? Like that's crazy. That is a crazy differential.
Yeah, like 75.7 versus 66.8. Like, what does that mean? I don't know what's average. Like, but then I went over to the where would that rank? Basically first and worse than last.
First and last, yeah.
And that's when
and that's when you might have a problem. Yes. That is the crazy step. And the other thing is, even with Rudy, like we saw early in the year, like late in games, they were even struggling to get rebounds, even when he was on the floor. Now, I actually I agree with Finch that last night was actually, I thought, one of their better rebounding performances of the season. Ant had 10. So I actually did think that was one of the areas they played well last night. But man alive, that is a crazy, crazy number. And it just goes to show you that when those Randle Nas minutes are just a problem.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah. I don't I don't know how to put a fork in them, but I sure want to,
Yeah.
And and that's actually not all on Randle. Part of that is Nas. I think Nas is really intentional about rebounding in those minutes too. But that's just one of the annoying and I think actually young things about this team is they do something really wrong in one game. They clearly hammer it in film and practice the next day, and then they do it right in the next game. But then maybe they'll forget something else there. Then they'll, it's just like
Right.
plug in this hole, need to let the water squirt out of this hole. Like that's
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You can't have that.
Yep.
I got to keep moving here because I actually have to.
You got a flight to catch. I know.
Yeah, but I did want to. I want to talk about Nas some because I think if they win that game, I maybe like title this podcast the Nas Reid game because I thought that third quarter, what he did specifically to inspire a comeback was powerful because he, to me, inspires Ant more than anybody else. When Ant is in a malaise and Nas gets something going, boom. I mean, we've seen that for 5 years now. There's something inspirational about Nas's play to the entire team, but specifically Anthony Edwards. And I think like Ant needs some help. Ant needs some help here. And one way to do that is I think is with the Nas combination. I asked Finch about that after the game. I want to talk to you a little bit about this, but I'll play that clip first.
Nas kind of inspired that run late in the third quarter, hit that three, got the steal, and then that kind of got Ant going. Yeah. How do you see those two playing off of each other and maybe being part of something that could spark?
Yeah, I mean, they certainly guys who can get points in a hurry, bring a ton of energy to the crowd for sure. Oftentimes they play shorter stints together. Maybe trying to find ways to have them play longer stints together could help.
How much for you just rotationally overall is Nas a tricky piece to try and figure out where you're wanting to place him?
Well, tonight I think if I had to do it over again, I might play him at 3. Try to get him in there more. But it's not necessarily that tricky, really. It's not. I wouldn't say tricky. It's we have three bigs that play the 96 minutes that are there. So it's just we got to get them all playing good at the same time.
So, Chris, the few minutes at a time thing he said there about Nas and Ant that like totally lit off a light bulb for me. So the Wolves' best 2-man pairing last season was Nas Reid and Rudy Gobert. And a big difference with that was Nas and Rudy were given extended periods of run together. Like that became they check in and they play for like 8 straight minutes together. Whereas the season before, it'd be like 2 minutes here, 2 minutes there. And I think they never really caught any sort of rhythm because of that. And that's why in the 22-23 season, that was their worst 2-man pairing. So Nas and Rudy, when they were playing together in broken up bits and pieces, worst 2-man pairing on the team that season. They start playing together intentionally and in longer stretches, best 2-man pairing on the team that season. And I think a lot of that is like Nas is like a rhythm guy, right? He's a rhythm player and like understanding what it's going to be, who he's going to be with is just, I think has historically helped him. So I hadn't thought that like, I hadn't looked at how much Nas and Ant, I hadn't really thought about that part of it. I'd only thought that I want those guys to play together more, but maybe that's part of the adjustment. As Finch said in his answer, is like, let's really try to get to this. Let's be intentional about pairing Ant and Nas minutes together, even if Nas is going to come off the bench. But maybe that's I wonder if you can find that if Nas is coming off the bench.
I don't know, but what is the alternative? It's starting Nas, right?
3, baby.
Is at the 3 and you shift Jaden to the bench.
I don't know.
Do you hit the button where you put Julius on the bench and start Nas, and roll with that when Mike is healthy, that lineup that you had post cat injury last year. And that comes with political ramifications in potentially losing Julius Randle permanently.
Right.
I would imagine, if you make that sort of move. But it might be the right move for the team overall. I don't know.
No,
I
mean,
don't know. But
and I push back on that in the preseason. I'm going on other
Yeah.
people's shows and stuff like that. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, Nas Reed needs to start over Julius Randle. And what my answer always was like, no, Nas just needs to play more. You know, like you could start
and
Randle.
that's right. And I think I still think that's right. I
Mhm.
do think that there's a world where you could start whoever. It's at the end of the day, who's got the most minutes.
Yeah.
And closing lineups and things like that. But we know they love to close with Julius as well. So I don't know what the answer is unless you make a change to the starting lineup.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. No, I didn't. Me neither.
Find that for me. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I don't know either. I mean, I do wonder if like at some point some sort of uncomfortable move is going to be made. They've clearly been resistant to that, and I think would remain. Just off the top of my head, when Finch has made starting lineup changes, it's been because something off the bench is working better than something going in the start. I don't feel like Finch really punishes guys and takes away their starting role. Do you get what I'm getting at there?
No. You're right. He doesn't. He doesn't
yeah.
use that as a stick, so to speak.
Sure.
Rarely will take guys out of the starting lineup,
Mhm.
and if it is, it's usually like the fringe fifth starter who could, who wasn't, who isn't a big or wasn't a big money player.
Or just high usage.
Or just high usage, right? Yeah. I was surprised that Nas was not out there late in the game and in overtime. I thought if you're just going by, Nas had played well enough in that game to close because he was having a great night. Like honestly, just go with the hot hand at that point.
Yeah,
if he's got it rolling, he plays more than Julius. I hate just he does. If Nas has it rolling on a given night, he plays more than Julius. I think that's what has to be the thing. Like I don't know, and we've seen Finch be kind of.
We said that about Cat last year too,
right? Yeah,
yeah. We did. It was like, and there was a frustration of when Cat would close some games when Nas was rolling. That happened. That happened a lot, like last season as well. And so, if I'm like, I don't think that they'll do that. Like, I don't, or it will be very rare that Randle doesn't close. So I think your closing lineup like does have Gobert, Randle, and Edwards locked in. So last night is like the example of like, do you want to go with, if you want to close then with Rob and Nas, then your closing lineup is Dillingham, Edwards, Reid, Randle, Gobert. Like that. Yes, that was the inspired group last night. But if they, for example, started that lineup tonight, I'd be like, ooh, defense, I don't know. Like, because you're taking now Nikhil and Jaden aren't on the floor. Like, those are defensive closers for you. Those are the guys who are guarding Jalen Green, Fred VanVleet, De'Aaron Fox, whatever in crunch time there. So it's another one of those examples of like, ooh, need this, but also need that. And this player does this and doesn't do that. And that player does this and doesn't do that. It's the roster construction is poor right now. It doesn't line up. Right now, it just is not lining up.
This is not line up. No. And again, this is why you say 20 to 40 games to figure things out, right? Because you have to throw some different people out there. Guys have roles that are increasing, others that are hurt, and it reveals things about the team over the course of those number of games. And that's where this team is at. They don't know who they are in any way, shape, or form right now.
3 more games left of this homestand, and then you're kind of there, right? Like, I think this is the giving it these 3, and then maybe if it's feeling like this, that would be my guess. If an adjustment happens, it would be after this homestand, which is Kings tonight, Clippers on Friday, Lakers on Monday, and then they go to California next Wednesday on the 4th. That's about Is that 19 games in? 18, 19. So
20. It's 20.
Oh, that would be 20. Yeah,
That'll be 20. The end of this home stand will be 20. Yeah.
So I don't know. We will see. I also think there's a lot that they can do in these 3 games. It's always, this is a louder crowd. Everybody's in town, a little drunk for the Thanksgiving games. Like there's an opportunity to get a rhythm here, starting with the Kings game tonight. Just quickly want to
I wonder what the efficiency is compared to the level of drunkenness that the fans are in the arena with the team. How does that? Do we have numbers on that?
Yeah, it's Cleaning the Glass has that. If you scroll over to the 6th
amount of
blood alcohol level
served,
to offensive rating,
offensive
ratio.
rating. Yes, we have some numbers on that.
Yeah, I'll go. You go walk to that should be your story tonight, man. Just go walk to the stands with a breathalyzer.
No, thank you. Somebody else can do that.
Let me wrap up this episode by just kind of we don't often do a Prize Picks segment. Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks, because like on the Wolves game, because these come up every single, like a new slate of stuff comes up day of the game. We don't often do that many day of the game episodes, so I just wanted to like pull this up to show you all on the YouTube channel of kind of like what these are all like the Minnesota numbers. So if you're like, oh, Dante's gonna get benched, you can go less than the 9.5 points that he's set at there. You think a big Ant night at Drunk Target Center, let's do more than 26.5 points here, or more than 5.5 rebounds. There's a lot of different options. I mean, they have a ton of different options for Edwards, DiVincenzo, McDaniels, Randle. Mike Conley is on here for this game, which maybe says they think he's going to play. Naz Reid. Dillingham is the one that's not on here. Nikhil is too, Naz. But this is just fun. I think with I'm thinking if you're listening to this podcast, you're watching a lot of this Wolves team. And I do think a fun thing with this is you've seen them play Sacramento before. Like you have an idea of how you think they might play against Sacramento, and maybe you think that's more Nikhil minutes and adjust accordingly. So a lot of times we talk about with Prize Picks the NFL games on Mondays and Thursdays and Sundays and such, but there is always NBA, and obviously for all the Wolves games, these are up there too. So check that out on Prize Picks. Bunch of promotions there. Go to the promotions page on Prize Picks if you have that. A lot of free giveaways, free squares, all that sort of stuff over Thanksgiving week and Black Friday. And then if you just want to try it out for the first time over Thanksgiving, maybe you and your brother or sister or whatever want to make a lineup on Thanksgiving Day. It's a fun thing to do. To get, if you sign up using the promo code Dane and you make a $5 lineup, your account will be instantly credited with a $50 promotion. So feel free to check that out. That's prizepicks.com or the Prize Picks app. Chris, you got anything else for me?
Nope, I'm all good. Hopefully you have safe travels and you listen to lots of Mariah Carey over the holiday break here, and we'll see you when you get back.
I don't like All I Want for Christmas. I have no problem with Mariah.
Boo. I began this podcast by booing you. I'm ending it by booing you. Boo.
He's Chris Hine. He will be on the beat for the Kings game on Friday and the Clippers game, or the Kings game tonight, Wednesday, and the Clippers game matchup against the Clippers on Friday. Again, I will not be. I'll watch those games sometime after the fact, and Jason and I will be back on Monday morning to discuss what has gone down and if this team is kind of righted the ship to some degree, which I kind of anticipated. It's gonna be weird if I come back on Monday. That's 2 more losses. I don't know where this team will be.
I guess I'm not as confident as you are.
It's hard for me to see the whole thing sinking this early, but maybe it would feel like it was because I'd be 20 games in and it would be kind of sunk. So I don't know. We will see. I do still think there's a lot of talent on this team. I think a lot of it's on Finch to put the pieces in the right place to perform, and it's on the guys to just try hard at the beginning of possessions. They're all saying it. Get that edge back, man. Like have that pride. They talk about it after the games, which is I think eliciting eye rolls from a lot of the fan base, but that does seem to be so much of the answer is play hard for 48, and you're gonna win more minutes, and then the other stuff comes along. You know, you find your real point guard play, maybe get Conley back, find some more rhythm with Nas, get this new personnel to acclimate, all this stuff we talked about today. Like,
Yeah.
I do think it's correctable, but as Rudy said in that one answer, the question is, how long is it going to take? And we will see on that. He's Chris Hine. You can follow him on Twitter at Christopher Hine. He's on Blue Sky as well. Again, a big thing with him is that newsletter that he's created. You can find a link to that. It's free. I signed up. Easy for that. Just shows up in my inbox. I also really liked Chris's. So that wasn't your gamer. What do you call that from last night? What you wrote?
It was just analysis. I would call it more analysis. Yeah, kind of like I didn't go with a traditional game story last night. And I just kind of said, you know what? I just kind of I don't have a lot of takes. I don't have a lot of basketball-y takes. You are a take guy. Britt's a take guy. Jace has takes. You know, I am more of a step back report.
Sure.
You know, but I just felt last night, I'm like, I think I've seen enough basketball to know that this team needs a true point guard right now.
Yeah.
And so I figured I'd throw my voice in the
you're on it, man.
There, you know, so
you're on it. And you know, you also have, you know, quotes and stuff. What I like about when you do this is or what I try to do too, when it is a take, you know, it is something you've asked the player or the coach about, got their response, you know, to what that thought is. So there's a lot of good quotes in there from last night as well. Some in addition to what we played on this episode. So check that out at the Star Tribune. Subscribe if you need to, as it's titled Analysis. Timberwolves need better help when Mike Conley's missing and Rob Dillingham looks like the solution. Can I use that 14-word title for?
Does that work on YouTube?
I don't know. On YouTube, you need to do like "Wolves suck," all capitals. It's like we get in the algorithm. Yeah.
Right, get in the algorithm. That's right.
All right, Chris. Appreciate you doing it again, listeners. Coming up next is Jace on December 2nd. Until then, he's Chris. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah.